Hello, my name is Devin Hargrave, and I'm a missionary with the Rock of Ages Ministries, part of the prison prevention team. Today, we're going to be talking about the lesson on Corrie ten Boom. So if you have your Character Under Construction notebook, go ahead and get it out and get the synopsis and the teacher copy for the lesson on Corrie ten Boom. We won't be covering the entire lesson today. We'll be just giving you a few high points to go along with it. Also, there are maybe some scripture slides in here that you may need to hide depending on what classroom you're in. Remember, these lessons are designed for both voluntary and involuntary classes. If you've got the synopsis out, you can see on the front of it some of the different points that you'll need to hit as you go through the lesson and some of the different things you'll need to study out just to help you out with this lesson. You'll also see down at the bottom the resources that we've used. The Hiding Place is a very good book to read for this lesson. Also, The Tramp for the Lord will give you some background information on her, as well as any other World War II related information that you can find about this. You may also want to know a little bit about Anne Frank, as Anne Frank and Corrie ten Boom were contemporaries, and so just know a little bit about her. So let's go ahead and begin with the lesson on Corrie ten Boom. As we get into this lesson, a lot of times I'll ask the young people, well, what do you know about Corrie ten Boom? And they'll think it's a guy at first of it. They'll not fully see that this is a lady. They'll not understand the Dutch name ten Boom, so you may need to explain a little bit of that. They'll also think that her necklace they'll say she had breast cancer. And so you'll need to tell them that no, she didn't have breast cancer. She was a Christian, and that necklace symbolizes her Christianity. And so it's a good way to kind of introduce the lesson here. Also, the other thing I like to do is ask them how old she was when she died, just based upon the information that they have there in front of them. I also like to ask them what major events, world events, that she lived through. And so they'll give you a few of those things. And so you kind of set the groundwork as where she grew up and the things and what some of the events that she had to experience through her life in her lifetime. So that's just by way of introduction. Also, as you talk to them and you get to this point in the lesson, you'll show them that Corrie lived during the time of the Nazi occupation of Holland. You'll show that she was part of the member of the Dutch Underground, and she that helped hide Dutch Underground people. She helped hide Jews. She also helped hide students who refused to cooperate with the Nazis. You'll notice the picture of the hiding place on the right side of the screen there, and you'll want to get the dimensions of that so that when you're in the classroom, you'll want to mark off about what the size of that room was, and maybe bring up 6 or 7 young people, depending upon if you can do this, and show them where they would have been and how they would have stood in that room. And you can use that just mainly, a lot of times I'll do that by counting the number of tiles. Normally a tile is about a foot square, so you can just do that and kind of give you just a rough idea so those young people can see what size that room was. Also remind the young people that the people in that room were there surviving. And remind them that if they were caught, it meant certain death. And so just kind of give them paint the picture for them. Let them know. Don't take a whole lot of time on it, but take enough time on it to get the picture in their mind. Because as we deal more with the lesson, you're going to want to reference back to this and back to the treatment and the things that they had to do to survive. Corrie, as you get on into the lesson, Corrie felt her survival was a special gift from God. And she traveled throughout defeated Germany telling of her experiences. You'll need to know some of those experiences. And again, share with them the ones that are appropriate for the age group that you're teaching. Many times you can talk about many of the atrocities that were done during World War II and during the Holocaust and some of the things that happened to her and happened to other people during that time period, because they're going to need to, because as we get on here with the lesson at the bottom part of this slide, she was telling people to forgive their enemies. And you're going to want to show where it's appropriate what those enemies did to them and how poorly and how inhumane those enemies treated them. Again, remember your audience. Remember who you're trying to reach here. Are they high schoolers? Are they middle schoolers? Are they elementary? And adjust your illustrations about the Holocaust and World War II accordingly. But show them that they were treated poorly. Now, a lot of times I'll ask them, have you ever been treated this poorly? Bear in mind, that's a loaded question because there may be some young person in there that has been treated poorly. A mom or dad has done something to them or abused them. So bear in mind that. But also remind them that most of us don't know what these people went through and have never been treated this bad. But you let them know, I do know that there may be somebody in here that has been treated bad. And you begin to talk to them and begin to talk to them about forgiveness. And begin to talk to them about how Corrie forgave and was talking about forgiving those people that had done them wrong. You get to this point in the lesson, Corrie has been confronted by a man who was one of her former captors. He is asking her to forgive him. Corrie stands there and cannot forgive this man. It's at this point in the lesson I like to ask the young people, what kind of person was Corrie? And I'm trying to draw out the fact that she, right here in this part of the lesson, she's a hypocrite. Because she's just got done speaking on forgiving, and now that she's standing there with somebody asking for her forgiveness, she can't forgive. And at this point in juncture in time in her life, she's a hypocrite. And I really draw this out and make the young people stop and think about it and get the class involved with it. And they're going, she's a hypocrite. Man, I wouldn't listen to her. And you show, hey, her sister died at that camp. Do you blame her? Play devil's advocate for just a minute. Let them think that you're on the side where it's all right for Corrie not to forgive for just a minute. Get them to think about it. Get them, stir the pot just a little bit. Get them stirred up. But then continue with this lesson. She remembered others who had held bitter and had held their bitterness and their anger and became invalids. She remembered all this. All this while she's standing there and this man's asking for forgiveness. She's remembering all this. At the last part of this slide, you need to really hit on this point. That forgiveness is not an emotion, but it's an act of will, a choice. You're never going to feel like forgiving someone. You're going to have to choose to forgive so that you can go on with your life, so that you don't remain bitter, so that you don't affect other people. There's many good quotes about bitterness. I challenge you to look them up. Maybe Google quotes on bitterness and see about some of these quotes from older people that you can use in the lesson and talk about bitterness. One quote is, bitterness is the acid that does more damage to the vessel in which it is stored than on that which it is poured. It's a good quote, and you can look that one up. I believe it's by Mark Twain. And so look up some of these quotes that you can bring out to these young people. But also bring out to the young people on the next slide in the lesson. We don't have it up here for you. But how that Corrie shook that man's hand and forgave. She forgave that man that was her captor. And then show how she went on with the rest of her life. And ask the young people, if she had not forgiven this man at this point in time, would she have ever been able to forgive him? Would she have been able to travel to those countries that she traveled to? Ask them these questions as you get on with the lesson a little bit further. Ask them what would have happened if she hadn't forgiven that man that day. And he turned and walked out of there and he was sorry for what he had done and she couldn't forgive him. What would have happened if 2 or 3 days later, maybe even just a few hours later, she realized, I've made a mistake. And she ran out to go find him. But could she find him? Was there ever going to be another chance for Corrie ten Boom to forgive that man for what he had done? Tell them that sometimes when that forgiveness needs to be taken care of right there. Because it may be too late. Who's not to say that man, if she hadn't forgiven him, wouldn't have walked out and with his head down and his hat over his brow, not paying attention, and a car come by and hit him and killed him. And Corrie would have had to have lived with the regrets of not having forgiven that man. Tell them that they need to keep short accounts of their anger and that they need to give forgiveness as well as ask for forgiveness regularly so that they and their family members don't have to live with regrets if for some reason they were to die in an accident. I hope this has been a help to you. I hope you enjoy this lesson. Feel free to give us a call here at the Rock of Ages home office and let us know how this lesson has impacted your students that you have been dealing with. Thank you for taking time to watch this video, and I hope you have a great day.